The First World War gave us a great step towards Pax Judaica because they liberated the Holy Land from Ottoman rule, and it established a British mandate over Jerusalem and the Holy Land. And from 1917, 1918 and 1948, Britain presided over the return of Jews to the Holy Land, not Israelite Jews, who were scattered all over the world of Islam, Morocco and Iran and all these places. Not those Jews, but the others who were not a Semitic people at all. They were European people. These are the ones who were brought back to, not brought back, they're coming for the first time. European Jews were brought to the Holy Land. And then the state of Israel was established after the Second World War. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We begin with Allah's blessed name. We praise Him and we glorify Him as He ought to be praised and glorified. And we pray for peace and for blessings on all His noble messengers, in particular the last of them all, the blessed Prophet Muhammad. Allah's blessings be upon him as we greet you with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. There is one subject I have consistently refused to speak on. People have begged me in private, please shake me in private, please speak to me and explain to me the relationship between Russia and Israel. And I have said, no, I'm not going to talk on that subject. But today, praise be to Allah, I can speak on that subject for the first time. But I'm not going to speak on all aspects of the subject. I will speak on only one part of the subject. And as time progresses, if I have the life, I will explain more and more. From the perspective of Islamic eschatology, the relationship between Orthodox Christian Russia and the State of Israel. Now then, the Qur'an says that they plan their plans, and Allah plans His plans, and Allah is the best to plan. So in 2014, they were able to celebrate. We pulled off the best of all color revolutions. There's never been a success like this when they were able to change, excuse me, with a color revolution. They were able to change the government of Ukraine from a government which was friendly to Russia to a government which was hostile to Russia. And they did it with a color revolution. They spent billions, I believe, to bring about this change of government in Ukraine. And they celebrated, oh yes, they celebrated in 2014. But no sooner had they begun their celebrations than Allah's plan began to take effect, and their planning began to backfire. And from 2014 to today, the plan is backfiring on them. And in this video, I want to share with you that information. The first thing that happened after the color revolution of 2014 was that Russia was successful in reclaiming Crimea as Russian territory. But I don't need to dwell on that subject. When Crimea returned to Russia, I was in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, and I said, it's time for me to celebrate. Because whosoever controls Crimea controls the Black Sea. And the Black Sea is in the Qur'an. The Qur'an speaks بَعْدَوْزُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ in Surah Al-Kahf of Aynun Hamiyah. And the commentator of the Qur'an, Ibn Kathir, he said that's the Black Sea. Whoever controls Crimea commands the Black Sea. I said that when Allah spoke of Zulkarnain, an event which will occur twice in history, 2 generations, 2 people, Allah was not speaking about 2 horns, and he was not talking about any Alexander or Cyrus or Darius. No, no, no. When he spoke of Zulkarnain, he was speaking about an event which will occur twice in history. And the first one is already explained in the Qur'an, and in that first one, the Black Sea is present. And I argued 10 years ago that when the second Qarn of Qarnayn is to take place, the world will see events emerging in the Black Sea, and this is what happened in 2014, but this is not my subject today. For those of you who have been listening to me, and for those of you who can have the capacity to think, you are able to understand what is happening for the last 10 years with the Black Sea as the focus of your research. Now then, this was the first backfiring of the plan, that they lost Crimea. And then came the second part, where that part of Ukraine, which was Russian-speaking, bordering Russia, refused to accept a new government which was hostile to Russia, and which was brought about bogusly with a color revolution. And so then Ukraine began to oppress these people and wage bogus war on them. And for 7 years this bloodshed continued until Russia said enough is enough. You're now planning to join NATO, and you're planning to wage war on Russia? That's enough. And Russia intervened. And these parts of Ukraine, which were Russian people, then voted to join Russia. And so the plan backfired even more. But for our topic, what is important is that prior to 2014, Russia was still innocent. Yes. Before 2014, Russia still hoped that there was some way they could build an equation with Europe and with the United States and Britain, and find some way to live and let live. This was Russia's innocence, political innocence, economic innocence, monetary innocence, military innocence. But then, since Russia intervened militarily in Ukraine, the tide has changed. And Russia is no longer living in that state of pathetic innocence. Russia has realized that this is our enemy. The Western world and NATO are implacably hostile to Russia, and that will not change. And when Russia woke up to this realization that there could never be an equation, then Russia started to look to the rest of the world. And the Russian-Iranian alliance emerged so quickly and easily. And an alliance between Russia and Iran is bad news for Israel. An alliance between Russia and Iran is bad news for Israel. And so the alliance between Russia and Iran was the beginning of the awakening of Russia to what is the real status and reality of the state of Israel. And over this time that the war has been being waged in Ukraine, and the Western world is waging diplomatic war, political war, economic war, sanctions, everything, they're throwing everything at Israel. At Russia. In these 2 years, Russia is changing her foreign policy. That innocence, that pathetic innocence, has now given way to realism in foreign policy. And Russia is now drawing much closer and closer to the world of Islam. But more importantly, Russia's eyes are becoming open, and Russia is now seeing Israel as an oppressor without any shadow of a doubt. So Russia 2 years ago and Russia today are not the same. Russia's relationship with Israel has changed dramatically. in these 2 years. The war is being waged in Ukraine. And when the Islamic Alliance launched the attack on Israel, and then Israel responded with genocide, now look at what has happened. Look at what has happened. They planned their plans, and Allah planned his plans. And Allah is the best of planners. That Israel can now recognize that Russia is now hostile to Israel. I can see clearly now that Israel is taking the world to nuclear war. And when that war does take place, no one knows at all how many will die. No one knows how many parts of the world are going to be utterly destroyed, and no one can live there anymore. We don't know, because we never had such a war before in history. But what we do know is it would not be the end of mankind on earth, not at all. Because our Islamic eschatology, excuse me, I have this cough still here with me, I'm trying to battle with it. Our Islamic eschatology tells me of many events which will occur after the Great War. And of course, my viewers are well aware that I have told you of what our Prophet, Allah's blessings be upon him, has prophesied. That after the Great War, the next event which will take place, whether Turkey accepts it or they don't, is irrelevant. The next event which will take place after the Great War, as prophesied by Prophet Muhammad, Allah's blessings be upon him, is the conquest of Constantinople. That's why they changed the name, so that they could hide this prophecy. But we're bringing it back into the sunshine. And of course, we have explained why a Muslim army is going to conquer Constantinople. So now then, when will the Great War take place? Of course, only Allah has all knowledge. Only Allah. But we have the right to seek to anticipate when we connect the dots. Of course, those who are going to trigger the Great War, they know when they're going to do it. If Israel is to rule the world from Jerusalem, then Israel, and to succeed in Pax Americana, we have argued that you need a great war to do that. The passage from Pax Britannica, the emergence of Pax Britannica, required Britain to wage war continuously using the Navy, the British Navy, and the British Army land war and naval war for hundreds of years. Hundreds of years. But when the time came for the passage from stage 1 to stage 2, there were 2 big wars. There was the First World War, and the Second World War. And because you and I want to connect the dots of history, we have to study political history. We have to study military history to be able to understand the Qur'an and to understand the prophecies of Prophet Muhammad, Allah's blessings be upon him. Our critics don't appear to have that interest. We saw that in the First World War, it was a false flag, an assassination of the Grand Duke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary, who was assassinated in Sarajevo in the summer of 1914. And the First World War gave us a great step towards Pax Judaica, because they liberated the Holy Land from Ottoman rule, and it established a British mandate over Jerusalem and the Holy Land. And from 1917, 1918, and 1948, Britain presided over the return of Jews to the Holy Land, not Israelite Jews, who were scattered all over the world of Islam, Morocco and Iran and all these places. Not those Jews, but the others who were not a Semitic people at all. They were European people. These are the ones who were brought back to, not brought back, they're coming for the first time. European Jews were brought to the Holy Land. And then the State of Israel was established after the Second World War, in which again they deceived Hitler, and Germany made the mistake for the second time of attacking Russia. The first time they attacked Russia, it was through this Triple Alliance, and they deceived Russia, and Russia lost so many men in the First World War. But the second time it was Hitler who attacked Russia. And then after that, the State of Israel was established in 1948. And then these European Jews who now control Israel, these are the ones who by the hook or by the crook, mostly by the crook, brought all these other Jews who are Israelite Jews from Yemen, from Iran, from Morocco, from Egypt, from all over the world of Islam, where the Jews had lived for 2,000 years. We were only 1,400 years as the world of Islam. But they lived with us, and they lived with us in a harmonious state. They were not complaining. So there was no fighting, there was no enmity, there was no hatred between Muslims and Jews for all these years that the Jews were living within the world of Islam. They even lived in Constantinople, in the Ottoman Empire, and the Ottoman Empire protected them. But these Jews are now deceived and brought back to the Holy Land by the European State of Israel. And then you saw how the European State of Israel, using every trick in the book, every lie, every single act of oppression you could think of, is constantly expanding and taking control of a land which never belonged to them. Throwing out the people who lived in the land for more than 1,000 years. Throwing them out. They're living now in refugee camps. And so this Israel, from day one, is an oppressor. By trickery, in an unjust way, they establish a United Nations organization, and that United Nations organization have a vote, and they say the State of Israel must be created. That's how it came into being. A United Nations organization which Europe created and which Europe controlled. And that United Nations organization created the State of Israel, taking away the land which belongs to the Christian and Muslim Palestinians, robbing them of their land in daylight robbery to create a new state in that land. And from that day to this day, that Israel has been oppressor. I have said enough. I don't need to say any more on this subject, although there is more to be said. But I want to share with this to you because in the past I have refused to speak on Russia's relationship with Israel. And now today, for the first time, I'm able to say to you that Russia is now hostile to Israel. Thank you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.